Welcome to the Golden Age of Cardboard podcast, where we remember a time when stacks of cards were held together with rubber bands and Mickey Mantles were put in bike spokes. We hope you will enjoy and reminisce as you come along with us as we tell stories about the baseball cards from the Golden Age of Baseball. We will examine the state of the vintage baseball card market and talk to some of the greatest collectors in the hobby. You won't be hearing us talk about any chrome or shiny cards here. Now, to take you on this retrospective journey, here's your host, direct from the shallow end of the gene pool, my son, Mike Moynihan.
Yo and hello everybody, Mike Moynihan here, Golden Age of Cardboard podcast, hopefully your favorite vintage card podcast. I don't know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but man, we are, life's going on after the National. We did survive after the National, and I was thinking about that experience and getting some autographs in person. My roots is really auto, like my first vintage. I love vintage cards and I had a bunch of them, but I really started in autographs. I started getting Hall of Fame autographs, and it is a story I've told before. I'll tell it again quickly just so you guys can know, but I went to a Rangers event. They have an event called Winter Fan Fest, and I went to that, and Fergie Jenkins was there. Great pitcher for the Rangers and Phillies and Cubs and everybody else. Well, he was signing for $20, and I had a 19. I went home and I went back the next day. It was a 2-day event, and he was going to be there. And I brought a 1980 Topps card for him to sign, a Rangers card, for $20. I'm thinking, man, this was 2009, 2010-ish. And I said, man, I wonder how many Hall of Famer autographs I can get for $20. And so I started hunting. Turns out you could back then get a lot of Hall of Famer autograph, different guys for $20 or under. And I just had so much fun with that because to me, it was different than a card. I love the cards for sure, but it was a connection to that player. They physically had to touch the card, to sign it. And I remember having autographs that my dad had gotten me from when I was a kid. I had a 54 Bowman Phil Rizzuto signed. I have a Billy Martin card signed, just different stuff that always just was different than just a card by itself. So I'm calling this kind of getting back to my roots a little bit, because I'm talking about this thing that I just love so much and have been doing so long that it's also the thing that I get a lot of questions about when I show stuff, especially on the Baseball Collector channel, where I'm talking about my collection and the different aspects of my autos in my collection. That's the thing that I get the most private messages about or comments. And like you guys out there, you probably know a lot about what I collect and how I collect cards. My autograph collection is even better, and I'm even more proud of it, I guess is probably a better way to say it, because it's very extensive and it's taken me a long time to do it. None of this happens overnight. Collecting autos is just like collecting cards. It's a marathon and not a sprint. And so what I wanted to do tonight was give you guys, hopefully, kind of a crash course in this. And I'm not going to do it by myself. You guys know that I'm only the wheel that spins, and all the cogs are the important part. So I'm going to bring a couple of guys on that know a lot about this kind of stuff. And we're going to talk through this. So I've got Chris, Hall of Fame Pullers on YouTube, and Jake, Legends Never Die, one of my roommates from the National. He has recovered from COVID. That is good to know. But man, for you guys, first of all, welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, they're very talkative. You can tell. No, they'll get rolling here in a second. Chris, I want to start with you, because for you guys that don't know, is a channel called Hall of Fame Pullers on YouTube. And if you love Hall of Fame autographs, or you want to see great vintage cards signed by guys, go watch Chris's channel. Just start at the beginning and just work your way through his library of videos, his vast library.
Definitely don't start at the beginning.
Don't start at the beginning. Yeah,
we all back until you can't take anymore.
There you go. Start at the most recent and then go backwards. But Chris, how did you start with this? I have many topics I want to cover, but just what got you going with that?
Well, I used to have access to. I grew up. I'm a Texas Rangers fan. I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas, like Mike, and so I used to have access to players, and used to go get autographs all the time at Burger King or wherever they were at. And those were my most precious cards. Because I was like,
Whataburger. They'd be at Whataburger.
Whataburger. Yeah. Sorry, I should have known better. Now I'm hungry. And but I would like, man, this is the guy who is playing, the guy I'm watching on TV. Touch this card. He put his name on it. Just made it special to me. And so as I got older, I like cards themselves, but man, just having the guy who was the player put his signature on that card to me is just extra special. And so one of the mechanisms I found to make that happen was autographs through the mail and private signings, because now I'm in Kentucky and I just can't go down to Whataburger and get Juan Gonzalez's autograph like I could as a kid.
Oh, we're going to get into all those different methods that you can do this, because there are a lot of people that I think would want to get into this, but just like, I don't know how, or where do you start, or what do you do? Isn't it really expensive? And quick, Jake, your fascination with the autograph and why it means so much to you.
Yeah, so until I was 19 years old, I opened packs and kept everything like everybody else. But at that point, I got really interested in the history of the game. And I think you can't tell the history of the game of baseball without the Hall of Famers. They're the most important pieces throughout the history of the game. They're the greatest. And as far as the autograph goes, a lot of what Chris said, that's the closest I could ever get to a Babe Ruth, to a Mike Schmidt, to Ty Cobb, to these different players that I may not have seen or may not be living now, but they touched something that now I can hold in my hand that they signed. So it's a special connection to the game from generations of the past of the greatest to ever play. So that's why I was so fascinated by it, and started by doing a lot of research on Baseball Reference and building a lot of spreadsheets regarding the Hall of Fame and ultimately what I wanted to collect.
Yeah, it's interesting how the hobby has changed over the decades towards autographs. And what I mean by that is when Chris and I were kids, Jake, you're a young guy, so you won't remember this. You weren't even born yet, probably, when a lot of this was happening. But when Chris and I were kids, getting a actual, Topps card signed by the player was almost blasphemy. It was almost like you're ruining the card by getting it signed. And it was weird that was true, but they would do it with their real beat up cards. Oh, this one's in terrible condition anyway, I might as well get them to sign it or something. And so that would happen sporadically, but it wasn't probably until the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years that getting cards signed became a movement within the hobby. I would call it that. I mean, it is definitely a movement. When I talked to my buddy who works for TriStar at the National, he saw more cards this year than he's ever seen before. Rookie cards getting signed by Ricky Henderson and Chipper Jones and all the guys, that were there, and that it's just been this wave. And y'all's friend of mine, Garrett, who is Card Cutter, he's a huge TTM guy, autograph guy. He called this, like, I have to give him some props, because over 5 years ago, he was saying, man, cards are about to become huge in the autograph world, like that, because they're easy to store, right? Mm-hmm. It's a part of baseball card history, and the player signed. Like it kind of weaves together different veins of the hobby. And so it just makes a lot of sense, right? And we all now know that really vintage isn't as scarce as we thought it was, maybe. And so people are more willing to get these cards signed. And so have you guys seen that evolution? Have you, Chris, especially, is that something that you just see the popularity continuing to grow in that arena?
I've noticed, with friends I have, if they'll come over to my house or office or wherever, and they see, my display with autographs and stuff, I see that. But also on my YouTube channel, I get a lot of questions. How do you get these? And I think there's a lot of interest that's been generated, particularly kind of started with 2020 and everybody kind of being stuck in their home for a while. But definitely see a lot of interest in it.
You too, Jake?
Yeah, and I think it makes a lot of sense of why cards have become more popular to get signed, because it makes sense that you would want an image of the player with the autograph, right? I mean, would you rather have a piece of paper signed by a player or a card of that player that the autograph goes with the picture of them? I mean, it only makes logical sense to me. And a lot of collectors already had the cards, so why not get them signed to go with it?
Yeah, and picking up on something I just said a minute ago that makes sense too. I just thought of it. I mean, again, vintage isn't necessarily scarce. Like you can get an Orlando Cepeda rookie card, but it is more scarce to have an Orlando Cepeda rookie card that's signed, right? So the card itself may not be rare, but to get an autograph on it is even more rare. And we're seeing of especially like Gaudy sets with Ruth or Gary, like those cards go for exponentially more than just a plain old Ruth cut, you know, or whatever. The cards that are signed are significantly more valuable. And I think we're going to see that, especially as players, these older players start passing away. It's going to be like, well, Cepeda can't sign anymore. Marichal can't sign anymore. Oliva can't sign anymore. These guys that are getting up there, Mays, you know, Koufax, yeah. Exactly. So, I mean, I saw Koufax rookies signed at the National for 10 grand, and that was a lot.
He's charging 5 or 6 just to sign them.
Yeah. So it's this, I think it's awesome to see this go in the hobby. Luckily, I've been doing it a while. And so I already had, like, it's not like this huge daunting project for me to get all this stuff signed, but there's so many ways to do it, to get an autograph collection going, whether it's Hall of Famers or your favorite players from your team, or doesn't have to be necessarily Hall of Famers. We're going to talk about it in that vein because that's what we concentrate on. But that doesn't exclude someone from, going after the greats of their franchise, even if they weren't Hall of Fame players. So don't think we're only talking about this can only be done. If you don't do this with Hall of Famers, you might as well not do it. That is not what we're going to be saying here. It's just our experiences with Hall of Famers. And so, Jake, you're trying to get cards or a pick. Like, what's your target for each Hall of Famer autograph wise?
Yeah. So for each Hall of Famer, I want to get, in terms of autographs, an autographed baseball, and then an autographed card. And then I'm doing the Perez Steele autographs. Okay. If they happen to have a 2012 or 2013 5-star autograph, I have those as well. I prefer 5-star. They're on card. They're nice. So I try and get as many of those on card for the card component as I can.
Okay. So that could fill your card component. You're not trying to do like a vintage card or something if that player signed, or?
No, that's more unique to you and Chris. So I'm not typically doing those. I guess the one thing that's more unique to me, at least in regards to Mike, I don't know if you do this, Chris. You guys do the Perez Steele autographs on card, but I also do cut autographs on those. Mike hates them, but I mean, can you really hate a cut Babe Ruth autograph on a Perez Steele? I mean, come on, Mike.
I don't hate it.
Thanks, Chris.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it. Hate it.
Thank you.
I'll just say that 3 times. And Chris, on your targets, like what you're going for, because I think this is important to see there are different ways to skin this cat, right? There are ways you can do this, which can be unique and special. So Chris, what do you do?
Sure. So I started with rookie cards. I went post-war Hall of Fame rookie cards, the PSA registry, and that was kind of my target. And then I was like, well, I sent off to Jim Palmer, and I'm like, got his autograph, and like, what now? And so that has morphed into, I'm trying to do complete Topps player era Topps runs, which is very ambitious, but it keeps me, going. Every month I'll try to send to a player, and I try not to inundate with any particular player with cards. But my goal is particularly for the affordable guys, is to get Topps runs done, because for me, every baseball card is almost a piece of art. And I like the idea of, the guy who's depicted on that piece of cardboard is looking at it. I like to think that when they look at the card and sign it, of course, they're probably tired of it now, but I like to think that, you know, brings back a memory from that season or something. And so, and for my collection, I just think it's cool to see where a player started and where he finished up and everywhere in between. And I happen to love Topps cards in particular. So for me, that's kind of my goal for a lot of guys. And then for the players who are pricier, you know, $75 a card, $100 a card. I don't go as often. I don't go every month, but I try to add those guys, you know, 3 or 4 a year until hopefully I can run a complete set.
So you mentioned player era, and that I swear I get this question every time I mention the term, because so many people, well, he didn't sign that when he was a player. And we're like, no, that's not what that term means. It means that it's a card from their playing days. So right. It might be more accurate to say a playing days card signed by the player, but I use the term player era all the time. So examples would be, you got any examples there that you're
got some back in the mail today?
Are you going to open them for us right now?
I'll open them. Right. So I took my address off, but this particular one came back from Greenville, South Carolina. Anybody want to take a guess?
Greenville, South Carolina. That'd be Gaylord Perry.
Gaylord Perry.
That is to Gaylord Perry. That's his 67 and 70 Topps, which actually completes my Topps run of his cards. So the last 2 I needed. And then I got,
for people to know, what does Gaylord Perry charge per auto?
He charges $25 per auto, cash only. So he is a cash only. Not many of them are cash only. There's a few guys who do cash only. I like to send checks, but just in case, just in case the envelope never comes back, at least the check didn't get cashed, presumably.
Right.
But he's signed. And then there's one guy I got back today. He's signing very few and far between, and he's paused for a little while.
Mm-hmm. Brooks Robinson, 65 Topps.
I think he's 87 years old. He's not signing often or much, but signing just a little bit. He's $10 a card, which is very affordable. But you can't send a bunch of cards to these guys. They'll shut you down. Okay,
so here's the biggest. I'll throw this out there first, especially to Chris, because I know, Jake, you don't do it this way, but a lot of people are like, man, I'm nervous to send a card I just spent $100 or $200 on in the mail and hope and pray that it comes back. What's your answer to that, Chris?
I say do not mail anything that you can't live without. If it's you guys probably can't tell this 1965 Topps. I don't want to say it's beat to pieces. You can see the art, but there's a crease in it. Some of that comes from when you receive it back in the mail, but I don't ever spend a lot of money on something I send through the mail unless it's a private signing, which I'm sure we'll be touching that. But yeah, don't ever send anything through. And if you can, send a check. I can let you know how to find out who takes check, who takes cash, stuff like that.
Yeah, we're going to give you guys all kinds of tips and tricks as we get through this episode. But so stay tuned for all that. I have to say that through the people that I know, Chris, I got to give a shout out to Kyle Ground Chuck, another great resource for us. Garrett, obviously, I'm 100% on every TTM I've ever sent. Knock on wood. I have never not gotten one back. But I also only send to guys that have a long track record and history of being good signers through the mail. And that's another term. TTM means through the mail. People, I'm going to define some terms that many of you probably will know, but I also get questions many times about what does that mean? And so this is going to be some rudimentary and some advanced. So you're going to get a mixture of both tonight as we record this. But okay, so the whole Perez Steel thing, Jake, and I know Chris is starting to get into this. What made you get into doing those?
So what I like the most about the Perez Steels is you could get every existing Hall of Famer that they had done from 1980 through 1999, I believe it was, through that election year for the Hall of Fame. You could get a uniform matching set of all those guys autographed. And with them together, they look so cool. And then when you add on the piece of if you also do the cut autographs of the guys that weren't living during that time frame, I mean, you can get just about every Hall of Famer that there has been elected up to 1999 for most people. Right, Mike?
Yep. So I do these as well, as you guys probably all know, but I'll point it out. Here's the Reggie Jackson. I just got this at the National. It's you can see it's ready to go off to get slabbed up. Chris is showing a Sandy Koufax right now. You just made a point that I hadn't really thought of, but the uniformity of that, Jake, is so appealing, that they all have the same style. And even the ones that we've started doing custom ones of the newer guys, we're using the same style. That's the whole point. There's one right there. He's showing Chipper Jones that he and I both got in person at the National.
Larry Dale.
That was a great. That was very, very cool.
Chipper's the man.
We did Tim Raines in person too at the National, and Tim was like, "I've never seen these before." You know, it was just, it's kind of neat to do that and keep that uniformity. So I totally agree with that. I do all the Dick Perez items. I'm trying to get everything Dick Perez ever painted on a baseball card signed by that player, which is an incredibly daunting and dang near impossible task. But the real toughies on the Perez Steels are like, on card anyway, are like Kirby Puckett is really expensive. He doesn't have a ton of them out there. And then there's some older guys like Burley Grimes is tough. He's not impossible, but he's tough. Roy Campanella is really tough. Ashburn is impossible. Not impossible. We saw one at the National. I just couldn't pull the trigger. I couldn't bring myself to pay $600. I think he wanted for the Richie Ashburn. When Richie Ashburn autographs normally cost, $50.
On card Earl Averill and George L. Kelly, who are not expensive otherwise, but on card for a Perez Steel, very expensive.
Right. So there's a huge market for that. And I don't want to spend all the time on Perez Steels, but Chris, you've gotten into them relatively recently, right?
Oh, absolutely. From watching you guys.
Yeah, they're just so cool. And they look so great in person. And I'm getting all mine slabbed up. Not because I don't believe the autographs aren't authentic, but there's a DiMaggio.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, they just then it increases the uniformity for me even more, right?
Yes.
And so they're all authenticated. I get hit by the turnip truck tomorrow, then Julie can sell them a lot easier if they're slabbed up and stuff like that. So
you should give them to your friends.
What's that?
I think you should just give them to your friends.
Give them to guys that have appeared on the YouTube, on the Golden Age of Cardboard podcast.
Hand up on that one.
So I want to talk about kind of the three primary ways that I think you can get autographs. That's repeatable. Like if you run into a guy at a restaurant, that's one thing, but you can't be carrying around, a rookie card or whatever of a player hoping you run into him. But there are through the mail autographs, which we've touched on a little bit. We talked about in-person things like the National, where you can, or other shows that you might go to where a player's signing. Like I did Whitey Herzog for me and Jake, and I should have done one for Chris if I'd have thought about it. For $40, he was $40, which is not cheap. But at the same time, it felt inexpensive considering how old he is, and like, hey, let's just get this done. Yeah, I could probably through the mail autographs, and he's $10, $5.
$5, yeah.
$5 through the mail, but
I sent to Herzog TTM, and he sent me a different card that wasn't mine signed back. So,
Well, and based on seeing Mike at the National, he hates money anyway. So,
right, it just burns a hole. I'd rather have cards than money. So, in person TTM, and then private signings, which are becoming there's a plethora of them available. You can pretty much find any guy you want doing a private signing in any given year, or even on a rotating basis. Chris, I want you to talk about private signings. I'll talk about through the mail, and then Jake, I'm going to have you talk about in person. and maybe some pros and cons of each of those methods that you would tell people to be aware of.
You want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I found private signings over the last 2 years. There's several different ways, mechanisms to find some good stuff. And there's not a right or wrong way. There's some Facebook groups. Baseball private signings is a great one. And of course, there's sportscollectors.net, which is, for me, is a great resource. It requires a yearly subscription. It's $14.99 a year. It's probably the best $15 I've spent. But they're great resources, not only for through the mail, but also for private signings. They have sellers who, almost like eBay, have feedback scores. Very reliable guys in the industry who will do one of two things. They will either take consignments. So maybe you have someone who goes down to spring training or goes, particularly for younger guys, the Arizona Rookie League or whatever. You can send cards to them, and as soon as they're able to get them, they'll send them back to you, as in get the autograph, they'll send it back to you. Or what I prefer is private signings. So sometimes, if there's a big card show like at the National, or there's one coming up in Nashville in a few weeks, guys will go down and they'll take your cards with them, and they'll get them signed there. Sometimes they get a group rate, so you get a little bit less than what it would normally cost you. And then sometimes you have guys who literally, those are public signings that people take to them. But sometimes you have guys who will literally go into a player's house or meet a player at a restaurant or something, which is more of the private signing that we're talking about. And they can get, because there's not a show, there's not additional fees, they can get some players, because they'll collect the volume and they'll take it and sit down with a player for a couple hours and sign it. What I like about private signings is there's some guys who just don't sign through the mail. They don't want, if you try to mail them something to their home address, they're just going to shred it, throw it away, return to sender. So there's a lot of guys who don't sign. And then two, if you have a card, I just got one back today, a Carew signing. So this is a card that I had them sign for when they got it, and they had me sign for it when I received it back at my house today.
It's a Carew rookie card he's showing, by the way.
Rookie card, I'm sorry, 1967 Topps Carew. I mean, it's a high number card. It's an expensive card, and to get an autograph at a private signing, you're going to spend obviously a little bit more money than you would through the mail. But I wouldn't just send a Carew rookie through the mail. Not without protection and insurance and all kinds of stuff, and you just can't get that through the mail. So I think the biggest things still apply. To some extent, don't mail anything that you can't easily replace. Well, it's a little bit different than through the mail because you can insure it, for one. I probably wouldn't send too many rare things unless you had extra protection or very well packaged. But two, when you send to a private signing, you're going to get it back. At least I always have, and I think most people always have. So there's some reliability there, and really there's also, you need to leave, if you're going to do a private signing, you want to leave instruction. I got this one back actually today too. It's a 1986 Topps Ozzie Smith. I don't know how well you can see that. I don't know if my camera's focused, but I've got blue Sharpie and I've got arrows pointed down to kind of where I wanted Ozzie to sign. And you put your information on a sticky there on the back, and so there's obviously things put in place by these guys who do private signings to make sure you get your card back. But they're also there to make sure you get the right pin color, the right placement, stuff you're not going to get through the mail, particularly if you have some precious piece and you want the signature in a particular spot.
Yeah, I think that's a key thing. I just did, for you guys out there, I mailed off for my first 4 private signings ever today, which was another inspiration for this video, talking to these two guys about, hey, I'm doing this. What do y'all think? So I did Tom Glavine, John Smoltz, and Roberto Alomar to one company that was doing, it's called
that's Power Sports Memorabilia, right?
Power Sports Memorabilia. Thank you. So if you go to Power Sports Memorabilia, it'll show you who's all signed, who they have in upcoming signings, the date that those items need to be in their hands, etc. It's incredibly well done. They were anyway. And then another one was 5 Tool signings. And I did Bruce Sutter today. And for me, private signings are cool. I think they make a lot of sense if you're doing a very expensive card, like the Carew rookie is a great example, or it's something that's just unique and that you can't just find on the secondary market very easy. Like I almost did a private signing with Mariano Rivera a while back, a couple months ago, I think it was. Or I was thinking about him for the National, maybe that was it.
Yeah.
And I wanted a 92 Bowman rookie card signed by Mariano. And I thought, golly, you know, he was 239, I think, at the Nationals, something like that. And I'm like, then you got to buy the card, and then I'd want to get it slabbed. Well, I was able to go onto eBay through 4 Sharp Corners and buy the card already slabbed, PSA 10 auto, all that, everything I would want the card to look like for under $200. He did this, and you did the same thing, didn't you, Chris?
After I saw your video, I did.
Yeah.
I might have got the last one, so hopefully not.
I mean, I'm not saying that private signing, and you're not either, Chris, that private signings are you only got to do it this way. Just use that, put this in your toolbox of ways to acquire autographs for your collection as a great way to do that. Because another point you made that I don't want to overlook is not all these guys sign through the mail. As much as we'd love to just mail them $20 and have them sign our cards and they all come back perfect, man, you're asking for a unicorn. So be really, you know, learn who really signs through the mail and who is better doing a private signing through. And then sometimes, you know, I just want this unique item signed. I'm going to send it off to this private signing, like our custom Perez Steels. I can't find those anywhere because nobody else does them but me and Jake and Chris and a couple of other guys. So Jake, talk about in-person autographs. You know, you just got back from the National. You did a couple there. I know you've done some in Cooperstown before. Just what that experience is like and the pros and cons of that.
Sure. So I guess I'll start out with how my opinion has changed on it. So I always thought that in-person signings, people that did them were stupid because they cost more money. You know, I always thought, why would I pay extra money to get a Rickey Henderson to sign a baseball for me when I could buy one for $30 cheaper on eBay, already done, already authenticated, shipped to my house? Why would I ever do that? Then I went to Cooperstown in 2018 and decided to try it and get a couple in person. Let me tell you, that extra $30, if you have someone else with you that can film the experience, get a picture of the experience, and have that interaction, especially if it's a positive one, totally worth the money. I mean, you can do that without paying for the extra photo op or anything like that. I was hooked after the first time doing that in Cooperstown. So this year again, when Mike, like he mentioned, we went in person and got a couple guys. Chipper Jones is my favorite player. If you haven't seen that video, check it out on my YouTube channel. I was ecstatic. Mike can talk about that as well. I'm still excited about how cool it was to meet Chipper. And they say never meet your heroes because you don't want to be disappointed. Well, thanks to Mike and his idea, Chipper took me loving him from here to here. He said hello to my son, Luca, by name on video. And that's something you can't buy off eBay. So that was well worth the extra money in addition to what I got signed.
Yeah, I want to timestamp this because I had a good idea. So I want that to be recorded for all time that I actually had a good idea. I usually just steal all my good ideas from other people.
So, you know, pro of it, you get to meet the athlete. You can capture that moment that you can't get any other way. A con is it will cost you more money than just going and buying one. So I think those are the big two to weigh and decide what's most important to you.
Yeah. And then the last one, TTM, I'll cover real quick. I never did TTMs till about a year and a half ago. And I started with Ryan Sandberg, and I thought he's a very reliable signer. He was at the time, I think $10 a card. I think he is now $20 a card. Is that right, Chris?
Still $10 a base card, $20 a rookie card.
Okay, there you go. So I decided to do Sandberg's whole run. And what I would do is I'd send off a couple of cards, and when they came back, I would start, let's go again. And I would just rinse and repeat, you know, however many times till I got all of his base cards. I ended up sending him a few more because I thought for $10, like, let's just get some, like an all-star card and a couple of, you know, cool stuff.
That's how it starts, Mike.
Yeah, it does start that way. And now I'm hooked. You know, I've been doing a lot of Perez Steel customs through the mail. Nothing but good experiences. I mean, but you have to, the pros of it are it's relatively inexpensive. The most expensive guy that most people would probably want that I know of is Nolan Ryan. And he's a unique through the mail experience because you go through the Nolan Ryan Foundation. Mm-hmm. I've had both Chris send a card for me, and I have sent a ticket through the mail to him. They're probably both sitting on his desk right now, Chris, for us, because I know you sent some stuff to him too. But he only signs a couple of times a year. He kind of gathers up at the foundation. He's $75 a card plus 50 for inscriptions, maybe. Does that sound right?
50 for inscriptions, yeah.
Yeah, so not cheap, but it's Nolan Ryan, you know. So if you want a Nolan Ryan signed unique item, like I had a ticket from his last strikeout game. Well, I'm not going to find that anywhere. I have to send that off. And it seems like $75 to get that done is cheaper than I would probably be able to find it on eBay anyway, right? So, and
you get the authentic seal, and it's the real Nolan Ryan too, you know.
That's right. So, you know, but the TTM thing, a pro is, again, the expense. You know, you're basically paying for whatever the player fee is. Some of them, you know, are smaller donations, quote, air quotes. Some are cash only. You just got to learn all that stuff. And a great resource for that is sportscollectors.net. Mm-hmm. There is threads on probably every player and their TTM successes, failures, cost, addresses. All of that stuff can be there, because everybody always asks me, what are the addresses? Well, I don't know any of this stuff. I'm blessed to have friends that help me with that when I want to do one. Yeah. Chris is one again.
I'm the stalker. Okay.
Don't be hitting up Chris for all these addresses. He doesn't, you know, but they're not hard to find if you really want to find them, either on Facebook groups, like Chris mentioned. They're out there. It's not hard for you to find. You don't get out. What I hate about TTMs is so many people want something for nothing. Like they want all the benefits of everybody else doing all the hard work, and they're not willing to do any themselves. And I don't like that. So just don't be afraid to do a little work. It's not hard. Just find out who knows the information and get it. So doing that is great. Like Chris said, don't send something you don't want to get back. The negative TTM is you don't know that you're going to get it back. That's like the one huge gigantic negative. Again, I've batted 1,000, but the reality is most people don't, because they'll send, a lot of guys that I know will send TTMs. Man, this guy's never signed before, but maybe he'll sign for me this time, you know, or something. And it ends up that, you know, they never get it back, or it can take a long time, or God forbid the player passes away or gets sick. And
there's stories for quite a few guys too of wives, and I have a story from a friend of mine, and I won't name the Hall of Fame player. But I have a friend who knew the family pretty well, and they said, you know, we got really good at signing his name. I don't want to scare anybody, so I'm not going to name the player, but those problems are out there too.
Right. And you won't get that with a private signing. You won't get that with an in-person autograph. Yes, you're going to pay more, but you are assured that that's the player signing it, you know? So yeah, because there's scams everywhere, guys. Autos have a lot of money behind them. Believe me, there are plenty of scams out there. Do your due diligence. Find out, you know, get references from other people on forums or Facebook groups, etc., that this is legit before you just start sending money and doing crazy stuff. But I found I've done all three of these things, these three main ways, and I love them all for different reasons, as these guys have pointed out. And all of it's joyful, if that makes sense. Like, it's so fun to get a TTM back in the mail, and it's so awesome. And then, or you go to meet a player, like Jake mentioned, or I'll find out about private signings. I'm about to find out what that's like and how that experience goes. But from everything I hear from other people, it's going to be a very smooth experience. So I'm super excited about that. So
speaking of joyful, can I add one thing to TTM, Mike?
Sure.
So you don't even have to have a card if you want to get a unique item autographed. And I just have to share this because when you said joyful, it made me think of this. I came up with this idea to do custom letters for my son. So, for example, I'm showing one on screen that I just got back from Paul Molitor. And basically what the letter is says, hey, I'm a big baseball fan, collect Hall of Fame autographs. This is my son. I hope to teach him about the game of baseball through your story and lessons about life. If you would sign it and possibly write a message to him, that'd be great. And I've probably got like a dozen of these back now. And while they are monetarily basically worthless, they are so valuable and cool to me. Because if my son happens to take an interest in this stuff someday, talk about a unique item from his dad to him. So, it can be a lot of fun, even if it's not worth a lot of money, or you don't even have cards to send. So I just had to share that.
No, that's awesome. A great story and great point that you made. So again, the different ways to get them, right? Use resources, find out what players cost. Most guys are $5 to $40, maybe. Does that sound about right, Chris? TTM?
Yeah, I don't send, other than Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson's 100. Carlton Fisk is 50 per card. So there's a few guys I don't send to as often. But there's a lot of guys, a lot of Hall of Famers that are for particularly non-rookie cards. Jim Palmer, Wade Boggs, Goose Gossage. Ryan Sandberg, the list goes on and on.
Fergie does TTM, doesn't he?
Yeah, but the guys I just mentioned, Mike Messina, they're $10 a card. Fergie is $40 a card. But then you've got a lot of guys like Burt Blyleven, Lee Smith, Paul Molitor, that'll do it for $20 a card. I think Fingers is $15 a card. And there's a lot of guys who do it. A lot of Hall of Famers who do it.
Yeah, I mean, you could amass a pretty amazing autograph collection relatively cheaply, especially if you already have the cards. That makes it so much easier for sure. And go ahead, Chris, you grab it.
Hey, that's the key, preparation. And the way I do it, I have them all in card savers already. And I do it alphabetical order and then by year. I know Mike is like a by year and then alphabetical order. So we're a little different. But if you just reach in, these are all cards I would love to have signed either through private signings or through the mail. Just grab, there's an Ozzie Smith, 93 Topps. You don't have to go, I go through Sports Lots. It's a great place to get a lot of base cards of just Hall of Famers. If you don't have a big section, so I can get 300 cards for, $30 or something. But that's pretty intimidating for somebody who might be getting started. So I wouldn't, get a couple from each player that you're trying to hit, and eventually it'll grow into something like that. And then when I see a private signing come up, or when I'm going through the mail, I have that card ready, because some of these, I've missed some before because they've come up and they said, hey, this private signer's got Yadi Molina was one a few years ago or a year ago that I really wanted, but I just didn't have his rookie card in hand. It was actually at PSA, I think. And so I was like, well, I'm going to go ahead and get all these cards and have them ready. So if something pops up, because some of these have real quick, you've got to get me the card next week kind of stuff. But for the rest, through the mail, I think a big point to make also is particularly through the mail is you don't want to send 10 cards to Brooks Robinson. All right. He's 87 years old. And you want to be respectful to these guys, because a lot of these you're sending some of them to PO boxes, but a lot of them you're sending to their home address. And so there's a lot of guys who will only sign, a letter or a card through the mail. They won't sign to baseball because they open their mailbox and they have 15 baseballs, they're going to quit real quick. But a lot of them, if you send 1 or 2 cards a month, which is what I do, you can complete their Topps run in a year. You have to be consistent with it, but you're also, they're not cussing you every time they open the mailbox. I think I told Mike the only person who may be is Sandberg. Those who don't know, I have a son named Ryan, R-Y-N-E, and another one named Nolan. That's where we get Hall of Fame pullers. And so we send Ryan Sandberg 2 cards a month, which I don't think is too much, but he only signs 1 at a time. So, but be respectful of them and send them a note.
Always send a note with your through the mail, just how much you respect them as a player or whatever. Just, hey, thanks. I like on the Prez Steel Customs, I would just say, I collect Hall of Fame autographs. I'm doing this unique set. I would love it if you signed it. Again, they've all come back. Look, the money talks, really, right? But it never hurts to. And my note's a canned note that I've written that I just changed the player name. Really, I don't, and I print it and sign it. I actually sign it and put it in the envelope with the cards. So,
and I'll say this: make it easy on them. I use peel envelopes, where they, instead of having to lick it, they just peel it off. And after they sign the card and put it back in, I usually send cards. Don't tell the post office, but I usually send cards and just cardboard because they're easy to get in. I've heard a lot of stories about if you send a card in a penny sleeve or even a top loader, that a lot of these guys at their age, they'll just sign the penny sleeve. So like I said, sometimes your card may get a little bit beat up, but if you send it in something that makes it easy for them, and always send obviously a self-addressed stamp envelope, which, I just fold and put back in with the card, put it in the envelope, send it to them. But if you make it easy on them, then I think they'll return quickly.
Yeah. To get to a point about, I'm doing Glavine, Alomar, Smoltz, Suter. I'm doing those through private signings because they're not guys. The Suter stopped signing through the mail, I think, a while back, and the other guys don't at all. And again, with private signings, one of the cons is you're going to pay a little more. I paid $80 for Glavine and Smoltz each. I paid $50 for Alomar and $40 or $45 maybe for Suter. I can't remember. It's sad I can't remember. I just did it today, but what does that tell you? But we were talking about it before the show. We were talking a little bit before. Glavine and Smoltz are going to be at the Nashville Card Show signing. And I'm not in Nashville, so I can't be there. Now, in theory, you can send to these shows. You can mail to these shows to have these signings done. Chris has done that before to some shows. But how much was Glavine and Smoltz? 65 or something?
I noticed, and I looked on sportscollectors.net. There's a couple of guys who are actually going down there who are probably taking cards before the signing actually starts, or they're taking in bulk so they can get a little bit better price. You don't get to meet the player themselves, but I think Glavine was $60 per card. Smoltz was also $60 per card, maybe a little bit more for, a press steel or an 8x10. But, it's maybe $20 cheaper than some other signings per card, but that can go, you start adding that together, that can go a long way.
For sure. So everybody's going to have to figure out the best formula for success for them financially and getting the things they want done, completed. There's no right or wrong way to do this. We're trying to give you guys a lot of avenues to do this if that's something you're interested in, because there are a lot of different avenues and they all have pros and they all have cons, right? So I use this number a lot. What's your number? When I say what's your number, how many different Hall of Fame, not total Hall of Fame autographs, but how many different Hall of Famers do you have, Chris?
Oh man, I didn't prepare before.
We're gonna have a little moment here.
Oh man, I've got a lot. I think I've got 55 press steel.
Okay.
And I've got some cut autos on press steel as well. And then when you get a little bit more modern, because I've just started getting some of the custom press steels. I keep a spreadsheet of all of my Hall of Fame on card autographs by year, and that way I know what I've sent out, so I know what's out, and I know what I've received back, and I know what I need. It took me a while to total those, but I'm gonna guess 75
different
maybe.
Players.
Different.
Okay.
That's a guess. I wish I could tell you.
So I know the answers to these questions. So between the actual Perez Steel on cards, the actual cuts, and then the customs, I have 63 different ones of those. But different Hall of Fame autographs on cards, including the Jack Morris I got in the mail from you today, Mike. I didn't have Jack Morris.
Now you do.
I now have 138 different Hall of Fame autographs.
Nice.
Now blow us away with your number, Mike. Go ahead.
Everyone.
Well, if you must know, no. Perez Steels, including regular Perez Steels and customs, I have 114 of those.
That's so many.
It's a lot. And then I have 254 different Hall of Famers.
There it is.
Baseball Hall of Famers. I have a total of 2,904 Baseball Hall of Fame autographs in my collection. And that's across all mediums and types and everything from giant lithographs to little cuts or whatever, everything in between. And I track all those on a spreadsheet as well. I have every Hall of Famer, even if it's a multi-sign piece, and every player has their own line, and it's fun to track it. Like I think the most I have. Let me look who I have the most of.
I'm a guess, Pudge Rodriguez.
Oh yeah, good point. He's an easy one, right? Because I have 109 Pudge autos. I have 52 not Jackie Robinson. That'd be awesome.
Whoa. I'm like, hey, buddy, you need to share.
52 Brooks Robinsons, 45 Al Kalines, 30 Killebrews, 28 Ralph Kiners, 35 Bob Lemon. Like it's just stupid, quite frankly. Like the reality is it's pretty silly. 42 Duke Snyders. I'm just looking at my list. Like, I don't know. I mean, because I like all kinds of different cards. I like the 5 stars. I like all the Dick Perez paintings and great moments and all the different stuff. I like just regular cards. I like player era cards, as we talked about. So I'm one of those just lunatics that kind of likes everything. And so I don't just focus on player era cards or rookie cards. I wish I could. I just like it all.
When I do the baseballs, I've got 67 different Hall of Fame autographed baseballs so far as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's just so many ways, guys, that you can do this. And the three of us, if the three of us could give any testimony, it's so much fun. Like, do y'all agree? Like, it's just,
oh yeah,
it's very cool.
I mean, yeah. I do a lot of vintage stuff on my channel, but the autographs is really my favorite thing, because, the greatest players touched those items. They signed them. They held them just like I did. And I don't think you can get that any other way, especially now that relic cards don't even say that they were actually used in a game or worn or anything like that. So an autograph.
Heck, even now, it's not even the player signing it. It could be Randy Arena's, pool boy that signed the card or whatever, you know.
Well, do either of y'all have informed delivery?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like USPS.
Absolutely. It's the
greatest. It's I wait till 8 o'clock, at least Eastern. I'm Eastern, 8 o'clock Eastern every night. I go and I look and I say, all right, what am I getting in the mail tomorrow? And it's got a picture of, everything you're getting in the mail. And that just makes, it makes it more exciting. It's like the Tooth Fairy coming every night or something.
Sadly, my informed delivery doesn't come until about 8 o'clock in the morning for that day. So it's like, well, what's the point of telling me now? I'm going to find out in a couple hours.
You can log on to the website. I get the email every morning, but if you log on to the website at probably 7 o'clock your time, it'll tell you what's coming tomorrow.
Thank you for teaching me something, Chris.
Because my mail doesn't get delivered until like 4:30 p.m. So it makes for a long day sometimes.
Especially when something good's coming in the mail. Right?
like today was awesome mail day. But
well, again, tell everybody where they can find you, Jake, and then Chris, and we'll let you guys get out of here.
Yeah, so on Instagram, I'm Legends Never Die Collection. And on YouTube, I'm Legends Never Die. At the time of this recording, I'm 2 subs short of 700. So if you're listening and you're not subbed to me, be one of those 2 people.
Good deal. Chris?
I'm just on YouTube. Just on Hall of Fame pullers. I'm not hip and young enough to have an Instagram. But I couldn't tell you how many subs I have. I need to make more content probably. But
we agree.
We agree.
I got plenty to go. So I've got stacks and stacks of stuff I need to show. So it's been a big year.
As you guys know, as always, if you have questions, send them to me on Instagram. If you're listening on podcast, at Baseball Collector Mike, or just Baseball Collector Mike on Instagram. Leave comments here. Chris and Jake and I will be checking these for the next. Well, I always read the comments, but if we see something that you have a specific question about, we're happy to try to answer it for you and help you out. I mean, we want you guys to do this. It's not a competition. It's a community. And so that means we help each other out. And that is the total vibe that I've gotten ever since I've gotten into this stuff. And we want to share that with you. So thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for watching. Chris, Jake, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. Great discussion. This could be a 6-hour episode if we really wanted it to, but 1 hour is good enough. So
our moms would watch.
Right.
Hobby Palooza next year. We'll just do this. We'll just talk about this the whole time.
Oh my gosh. It could be pretty epic. If we get everybody, that would be pretty epic.
Bill, Frank.
Oh my gosh. There's so many great guys out there. All right. Everybody have a great night, great day. Whenever you're listening to this, whenever you're watching, thanks for it. Appreciate your support. Talk to you soon. Keep collecting.